Most people have been taught that budgeting is the key to financial freedom. The idea sounds logical. Write down your income, subtract your expenses, and control your spending. On the surface, it feels like you are being responsible and disciplined. But what no one tells you is that budgeting often traps you in a mindset of limitation instead of growth. You begin your financial thinking with the question, what do I have to work with? Instead of, how can I create more? And that small difference in thinking is the reason so many people stay stuck in the same financial position year after year. Budgeting teaches you how to survive on what you already make, not how to break free from what is holding you back. When you budget, you start mentally locking money into categories. This much for rent, this much for food, this much for bills, and maybe a little for fun. At first, it feels organized, but slowly it becomes a cage. You stop questioning whether your income is too low. You stop thinking about better opportunities, side incomes, or skills that could change your life. Instead, you focus all your energy on cutting, reducing, and sacrificing. You become proud of skipping coffee, canceling outings, and saying no to experiences, even though the real problem was never the coffee, the outing, or the experience. The real problem was that you were trying to fit a big life into a small income. Budgeting also creates a dangerous illusion of control. You feel productive because you are tracking, planning, and adjusting numbers on paper or in an app. But moving numbers around does not actually increase them. You can color code your expenses, use the best planner, and download the most advanced budgeting app, and still stay broke if your income stays the same. It becomes a routine that makes you feel safe while slowly killing your ambition. Instead of being a tool for growth, the budget becomes a comfort zone. And comfort zones are where dreams quietly die.
Another reason budgeting keeps people stuck is because it trains the brain to think small. Every decision becomes about restriction. Can I afford this? Should I cut that? What can I remove? Over time, this creates a constant feeling of lack. You start to feel like money is always running out, even when you have enough for basic survival. That scarcity mindset is far more damaging than the actual numbers in your bank account. When you constantly tell yourself, I can't afford this, your mind stops looking for ways to increase your value and starts accepting limits as permanent reality. This mindset slowly affects every area of life. You stop exploring better opportunities, higher paying jobs, or new ideas because your main focus is staying within the safe lines of your budget. You don't take courses, don't invest in yourself, don't take risks, and don't step into rooms where growth happens, because none of that fits into the current plan. Budgeting tells you to stay where you are and just manage it better. But staying in the same place and just getting better at surviving is not success. It is just a more organized version of being stuck. Ironically, many people who are great at budgeting end up being great at being broke efficiently. They know exactly where every dollar goes, but they still don't have extra dollars. They track every expense, but they never change the income side of the equation. And as long as income stays limited and expenses continue rising with life, all the budgeting skill in the world will not move you forward. It just makes you a disciplined prisoner of your own financial situation.
Budgeting also tricks you into believing that the problem is your spending, when very often the real problem is your earning potential. People blame themselves for not being disciplined enough, not planning well enough, or not having enough willpower. They feel guilty for enjoying small pleasures and convince themselves that if they just sacrifice a little more, everything will finally improve. But the harsh reality is that no amount of perfect budgeting can fix an income that is too low for the life you are trying to live. You cannot shrink your way to wealth. You cannot cut your way to freedom. At some point, the only real solution is to expand, not restrict. Another hidden trap inside budgeting is that it normalizes struggle. When your entire financial strategy is based on making it through the month, you start building your life around struggle as the standard. You stop expecting more and start feeling proud just for surviving. The excitement in your life comes from finding a small discount or saving a few dollars, instead of building something bigger. Over time, your dreams get smaller, your desires get quieter, and your world shrinks to fit inside a spreadsheet. That is not what life is supposed to feel like. Money was meant to be a tool that opens doors, not a cage that decides how small your life has to be. People who break free financially usually don't have perfect budgets. They have powerful visions. They think in terms of growth, opportunities, and long-term goals instead of weekly limits. They focus on how to increase their value in the marketplace, how to solve bigger problems, and how to create more income streams. They understand that freedom does not come from controlling every dollar, but from creating enough dollars that control is no longer the main focus. That mindset shift is what separates people who stay stuck from people who truly move forward.
Another painful truth no one talks about is how budgeting can quietly destroy your relationship with money. Instead of seeing money as a tool for creating joy, opportunity, and security, you start seeing it as a problem that always needs to be managed. Every purchase becomes a moment of stress. Even necessary expenses feel like they are hurting you. You don't feel empowered when you spend money, you feel guilty. That guilt builds up over time and creates a negative emotional connection with money itself. And when you have a negative relationship with money, it becomes incredibly hard to attract more of it into your life. Budgeting can also damage relationships with other people. Conversations with your partner turn into arguments over numbers. Simple plans with friends become uncomfortable because everything has to be checked against the budget. You stop being present in the moment because you are mentally adding and subtracting dollars in your head. Life starts to feel like a constant compromise, and deep down, resentment begins to build. You aren't angry at the people, you are angry at the limitations. But instead of changing the limitations by increasing your earning power, you keep tightening the budget and blaming yourself for not being strong enough. That internal war is exhausting and slowly drains your motivation. And the more you focus on control, the less you focus on creativity. Creativity is what grows wealth. It is the ability to think differently, try new things, connect ideas, and step outside normal patterns. But strict budgeting kills creativity because it trains your brain to follow rules, not break them. It teaches obedience to your current reality instead of rebellion against it. Without realizing it, you start choosing safety over possibility, predictability over potential, and that choice, repeated over years, is one of the biggest reasons people wake up one day and realize their life never really changed.
There is also a silent emotional cost to living by a budget for too long. You begin to treat yourself like a child instead of an adult. You have to ask your own permission to buy things. You punish yourself for small mistakes. You give yourself tiny rewards for following the rules you created. Over time, this damages your sense of self-trust. Instead of believing that you are capable of earning more and handling more responsibility, you start believing that you must always be controlled, limited, and restricted. That belief doesn't just stay in your finances, it starts affecting your confidence in relationships, career decisions, and new opportunities. The world around you does not wait while you perfectly balance your numbers. Prices go up, rent increases, new skills are required, whole industries change. If all your energy is spent figuring out how to stretch the same amount of money further, you miss the time-sensitive chances to move ahead. While you are busy trying to save a few dollars, someone else is learning a new skill, meeting new people, building a project, or creating a second stream of income. Budgeting keeps you looking down at the ground instead of up at the horizon. This is why some people can live on the same income for 10 years with upgraded knowledge, stronger networks, and smarter strategies, while others stay exactly the same even though they have become better at budgeting. The difference is focus. One group focuses on limiting damage. The other focuses on creating expansion. And in a world where opportunity rewards speed, creativity, and courage, playing defense forever will never lead to winning.
What really changes a person's financial situation is not a tighter plan, but a bigger vision. When you stop asking, how do I manage this better, and start asking, how do I grow beyond this, everything shifts. Your mind begins to search for answers in a different way. You start noticing opportunities you used to ignore. You become curious about skills, businesses, side hustles, investments, or new career paths. Your energy moves from protection to expansion. That single mental change is more powerful than any budgeting method because it attacks the root of the problem instead of treating the symptom. This does not mean you should be careless or irresponsible with money. It means the main focus should be on increasing your worth, not just organizing your limitations. When your value in the marketplace increases, money naturally follows. And when money increases, the need to control every tiny detail disappears. You stop stressing over small purchases because you know you can always create more. That feeling of abundance is what gives people confidence, creativity, and courage to take bigger steps in life. The truth is, most people don't actually need a better budget. They need a better plan for growth. They need a reason powerful enough to make them uncomfortable, to make them learn, to make them take risks. Because comfort is expensive, and it is usually paid for with your future. The moment you realize that budgeting is not the solution but only a temporary tool is the moment you begin stepping out of the invisible cage that has been holding you in the same place for far too long.
Budgeting makes you feel like you are being responsible, but most of the time, you are just rehearsing a life you no longer want. You are planning how to survive inside a situation that is too small for your potential. It is like carefully arranging furniture in a burning house instead of walking outside and building a new one. You keep perfect records of everything that is slowly suffocating you, and you call that progress. But real progress is not better management of a bad situation. Real progress is choosing a different situation entirely, even when it feels uncomfortable, risky, or uncertain. That courage is what budgeting often takes away, because it makes the small life feel organized and therefore acceptable. Another reason budgeting keeps you stuck is that it keeps you thinking in short time frames. Everything is about this week, this month, this bill, this expense. You rarely think in terms of 5 years or 10 years. You don't build strategies for your future self because your current self is too busy juggling numbers. Your brain is in constant reaction mode instead of creation mode. And a person who lives in reaction mode can never get ahead because they're always responding to yesterday's problems instead of designing tomorrow's success. That is why so many people look back and say, I don't know where the years went. They were too busy managing to notice that life was passing by. Freedom begins when you stop obsessing over control and start trusting in growth. When you realize that your mind, your skills, your time, and your creativity are worth far more than any carefully written budget. The most powerful financial decision you can make is not cutting another expense. It is deciding that you refuse to stay small anymore. And the moment you make that decision, your life shifts from being managed to being built.
This doesn't mean you throw away all structure and act without thinking. It means you finally put structure in the right place. Instead of building a fence around your spending, you start building a road toward your potential. You still respect your money, but you no longer fear it. You start using it as a seed instead of treating it like something that must be protected at all costs. You invest in learning, in growth, in experiences that expand your mind and your income. That is how people actually break free, not by perfecting their budget, but by outgrowing the version of themselves that needed one. When your focus shifts from how do I survive this month to how do I elevate my whole life, you step onto a completely different path. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must be controlled and start seeing yourself as someone who can create. That identity change is everything. Because the world does not reward the best budgeter. It rewards the boldest thinker, the fastest learner, and the person who refuses to accept a small, limited version of life as normal. And that is the real reason why budgeting is keeping you stuck. Not because the system itself is evil, but because it has convinced you that staying inside a narrow box is smart. Once you see the box for what it is, you cannot unsee it. And when you finally step outside it, you discover that the life you were trying to fit into a budget was always meant to be much bigger than that.